So box of horses. That Friday afternoon, in AAA Guns and Jewels, Sean's life flashed before his eyes, just as they said it would when he faced death. Though it wasn't his death, but his grandfather's, that made the events of Sean's 22 years begin to reoccur as soon as he heard the old man shout, "Go right ahead and shoot me, you little shit." Sean was in the back room, on the phone with a woman who was calling from Feed the Children. Most of the people who live on our planet are hungry, and most of those people are infants and children, she'd been saying when Sean heard AJ shout these words, turned around and froze because of what he saw in the yellow, dirty electric light of the front room. The emaciated customer wielding a Beretta 38, which had, as his grandfather knew, even better than Sean did, one of the most unreliable hair triggers of any firearm. The slightest shiver could set this cheap, overbought street weapon off. But this didn't bother the old man in the least. He smiled right into the barrel, then laughed a large, open-mouthed laugh, just like George C. Scott in Patton, one of AJ's favorite movies ever, because the old man liked stories of contrary heroes who rose above history, who built rockets and shot themselves into space, who settled the American West, who killed Germans and bested Rommel, who did anything other than what AJ had been doing for the last 3 years, which was to die slowly of old age and cancer, melanoma that had spread to his liver, his colon, and finally, and most painfully, to his bones, placing him not at all above history, but deeply and painfully inside it. They'd been robbed in the past, 8 times, in fact, and their rule was always do what the guy with the gun says, no matter what. Because, of course, at the end of the day, you wanted to live more than anything else. You wanted to get away with your life, as they always had, climbing the stairs after closing time to the one-room apartment above AAA Guns and Jewels, where they had shared since Sean was a small boy, the same bedroom and kitchen, the same bathroom and black and white TV, the same record player playing the same records, because AJ didn't see any need to trade up for a flat screen or a CD player, dozens of which they had in the shop below them anyway. For years, they listened to Frank Sinatra, Harry Belafonte, Neil Diamond, the Duke, and the Count. AJ liked the big band music best. His eyes soft, he'd say. Those were the days when people used to dance. You had to know how. You had to learn. You couldn't make it up. They prepared the same meals week in and week out: egg salad, BLTs, grilled cheese, club sandwiches, and on Sundays, steak sandwiches with melted Havarti and martini olives right out of the jar. And sometimes when Sean was still a boy, AJ might make a Jell-O concoction, the same sort of thing that Madeline, Sean's mother, had often made, because his grandfather seemed to understand how terribly Sean missed her after she had dropped him off at the age of 6 in front of AJ's shop, not even coming inside. The storefront's 2 neon signs, money for guns and cash fast, flickered at Sean's back, and the wind blew in Madeline's dark hair as she shouted out the car window at him and his grandfather, "You're going to stay with Granddad for a few days, all right?" And neither Sean nor AJ ever expected those few days to become 16 years. Now he was about to lose his grandfather as quickly as he'd lost his mother. He needed to act, to do something. But the woman on the phone was droning on, was saying just a few dollars every month will make a real difference. And Sean wasn't moving. He was scared, it seemed, as he watched AJ lift his hands above his head, not to surrender, but to show his hoped-for killer. As the old man's shirt sleeves fell away from his shriveled wrists, the tumors splattered like thrown mud over his forearms. "I'm already dead," he shouted. "Do it. Shoot me in the mouth, please. Right in the kisser, you yellow-faced, dickless candy ass." And the indecisive kid raised the gun, and then put it down again, and then raised it, and put it down. AJ had always had a passion for cussing, for saying and savoring the profane. cocksucker, shit for brains, asswipe, despite the fact that he never allowed Sean the same privilege. Do as I say, not as I do, he always told Sean. Or, more simply, don't swear, goddammit. And Sean, who had been a timid and compliant child, obeyed, perhaps because he feared losing him. During those first few years, he would wake in the dark blue of early morning and expect to see the rumpled sheets of the old man's empty bed across from him, and not, as he always saw instead, the good, respiring lump of his still sleeping grandfather. Nonetheless, Sean did rebel, did throw fits on occasion, as on the night at the dinner table many years ago when A.J. shook his head and said, "Your mother seems to have traded in her horse for good." After which he pointed his fork at himself and added, "How about this horse instead?" Which was when Sean threw his plate of cheesesteak to the floor and shouted that he wanted Madeline back. He wanted her smell of lilacs and soap and tangerine shampoo, even the occasional scent of booze on her that meant she'd have trouble getting herself in bed, and even more getting out of bed the next morning. But he wouldn't complain, not even about the men she sometimes brought home. The one who made candy, cigarettes, nickels, and dimes appear from Sean's ear was the one he liked best. He just wanted her back. He wanted her soft, tickling fingers and her voice singing "Hush, Little Baby." His grandfather had liver spots all over his hands and face, and the stink of cigarettes on his breath and the potent rank of his bowels came all morning from the small bathroom at the back of their apartment. "I don't want you," he shouted. "You're an old man. You stink. You stink." And A.J. said and did nothing, just put his head down and attended to his meat sandwich, remaining silent for the rest of the night, even as he bent his frail body to clean up the steak from the floor. It was clear to Sean then that as tough as the old man seemed, he was in fact easily hurt. And what made things still worse was that Sean had struck out at A.J. more harshly than ever only a few days before, when his grandfather, through one of his fits, brought on more and more frequently by the pain. They'd been at the breakfast table, and A.J. had slammed his spoon down, shouting, "This is my last Wednesday ever. My very last goddamn one, I swear it. I'm done with this day. I'm done with Thursday, and the next fucking day, too." To which Sean responded, as he always did, "Please don't say that. Please just eat one bite of your oatmeal." Sean was the horse now, beast burden, who did all the caretaking, who'd even had to drop out of the state college a few years ago to keep the shop, to take A.J. to chemo, and to stay with him for the days afterwards when he was sickest. Oatmeal was on the list of cancer-fighting foods he'd gotten from the clinic. He'd even read on the internet about a woman who consumed a pound of oats every day until her tumors had just fallen off her. She'd literally seen the wasted pieces of cancer hit the floor and knew that she was cured forever. And so he'd said, "Let's just eat." Though Sean didn't really believe anymore in miraculous last-minute recoveries, and he saw with every passing day that too much suffering made his grandfather vicious. Instead of eating even one bite of his oats, A.J. shoved the bowl aside, poured a generous portion of whiskey in his coffee, and lit a cigarette. "Those things don't help, Granddad," Sean said. "In fact," A.J. said, "they usually do help me take a shit, and that happens to be what I need to do right now." And so Sean, as calmly and patiently as any 22-year-old who would rather have been in college calculus than with this dying old man, stood and executed his duty as he did every morning. He walked A.J. to the bathroom, undid his belt and zipper, shimmied his pants and boxer shorts down to his knees, and gently set him on the seat while his granddad shouted, "Take your hand off my cock if you wouldn't mind very damn much not making us feel like perverts, please." It was then that Sean did it, left him on the toilet, and sat out in the living room for 30 minutes, long after A.J. started calling through the door, "Are you there? I think I need some help, Sean. Jesus Christ, please come." Some minutes later, he added, "I'm sorry, kid." Even then, Sean made himself count slowly to 60 before he hurried into the bathroom to see A.J. grasping at the edge of the sink, using it as leverage to stand himself halfway up, his pants down around his ankles, toilet paper flagging out of his backside, and a trail of urine running down his pale leg, marbled with varicose veins, and into his sock. You left me, he said. No, Sean said, setting his grandfather down, cleaning the urine away, removing the tissue and cleaning him there too, tucking him in and zipping him up until he looked decent and cared for again. I'd never leave you, Sean said. And then he flushed the toilet so that the tiny black stool that floated in a haze of bloody water would disappear forever.